If you're looking to purchase a home in the Los Angeles area in order to Airbnb it, or if you own a property in Los Angeles County and you want to short-term rental your property, watch this video because I'm going to go over all of the new rules for Airbnb for 2024. And I'm also going to show you how to get around some of those rules. And I'm also going to chat with two vacation rental managers who have a boutique company here that help owners rent out their property on Airbnb. They're really great guys, get a lot of great information about what to avoid if you're doing an Airbnb and the things that you need to look out for in a property that will make you more money if you want to rent it out short term. Okay, let's talk about the rules for 2024 to Airbnb your property here in LA. Now, the city of Los Angeles has been pretty strict for many years about the short-term rentals here in the area. But the county of Los Angeles is now adopting some rules that are going to hit in September that are going to affect Airbnbs pretty dramatically. Now, keep in mind, Los Angeles County is massive. It's over 2,650 square miles. And there are a lot of areas that you wouldn't think are in unincorporated Los Angeles, but there are, like East Pasadena, all the way to Marina del Rey. There are huge areas that are in unincorporated county. So this will apply to all of these areas in this chart that I just put up. So here are the big new rules that the county of Los Angeles is also going to start enforcing. The first rule is that you have to register your property, and the registration fee is now $914. The second rule that is really surprising to me, and it's going to affect a lot of people, is that you can no longer rent out your ADU, guest house, vacation homes, recreation rooms, or boats cannot be short-term rentals anymore. Hosts will be limited to their primary residence. That is really surprising to me because a lot of people built ADUs with the intention of short-term rentaling them, but you can no longer do that in the county of Los Angeles. It has to be your primary residence. Number 3, hosts can no longer run more than one short-term rental in the area, and you can only accept one booking a night. And the fifth one is a big one, the maximum of 12 people allowed per reservation. So you cannot have any hosted parties, commercial events, corporate banquets, or anything with an admission fee. So they are getting a little bit more strict in the county as well. Now, how are they going to enforce all this? Well, it could be really expensive if you break these rules, so you need to be really careful. For example, if you have a violation, they could charge you $2,000 a day or 2 times the nightly average rate that you're charging, whichever one is higher. So it could be really, really costly if you break some of these rules. So just be really careful. Now, there are ways to go around these rules, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit. But before I do that, I want to show you how you get your permit here in the Los Angeles area. All right, let's talk about the rules of getting your short-term permit here in LA. Now, throughout this whole video, I have a lot of information. I'm going to put all of these links in the description down below. Please comment if you have any questions, or you can reach out to me directly at 213-268-6832. So the first rule of a short-term rental here in the Los Angeles area is that it must be your primary residence. It can't be a second home or a vacation home. It must be your primary residence, and you must live in the property for at least 6 months of the year. And in order to prove that, they have some documentation that they would require, including a photo ID. If your driver's license address doesn't match your property address, then you will need to provide 2 other pieces of documentation, which include a current valid California voter's registration card, a current valid California vehicle registration certificate, a recent health or vehicle insurance bill, a copy of a paycheck or pay stub issued in the last 6 months, a copy of a current property tax bill indicating homeowners exemption, or a copy of a current rental or lease agreement, including the property manager's or landlord's contact information and signature. Okay, so if it's your primary residence and you can provide all that documentation, the next big one that you really need to check is that if it is in a rent stabilization zone. There's huge sections of Los Angeles that are in a rent stabilized or rent controlled area, so you need to make sure that yours is not in there. If it is, then you are not allowed to do any kind of short-term rentals in that area. Now, the way you check that is you go on to zemas.lacity.org and you can plug in your address. On the left-hand side, it'll say housing. You just click on that tab, and right below that, it'll say if it is in a rent stabilization ordinance or not. So if you meet both of those criteria, the next one is that it has to be of residential use. So you can't rent out your car or rent out an office because it needs to be zoned for residential use. The fourth rule is that your primary residence must not have any citations or violations. departments. And that includes City Enforcement Agency, the Department of Building and Safety, the Housing and Community Investment Department, or the Police Department and the Fire Department. So if you have any violations from your property, just living in it for one reason or another, you cannot do short-term rentals. And the fifth rule is that you will have to pay and register with a transit occupancy tax. So just like a hotel charges taxes, you're going to have to charge taxes for your property as well. And the last one is that you have to have a home registration number, which you will if you meet all of these criteria. Okay, so you've met all of the criteria. Now you got your permit. You can only rent out your property for 120 days. Now, you can do an extension, but there's more rules for that and another fee. So if you were going to apply for an extended stay, then your new registration fee is $1,030. Here are some other rules that you will have to abide in order to do an extended over 120-day short-term rental. Hosts must have maintained a valid home sharing registration for at least 6 months or have hosted for at least 60 days. Neighborhood notification. Hosts must notify adjacent and abutting owners and occupants. Number 3, no suspensions or revocations. Hosts must demonstrate that they have not had their registration suspended or revoked within the past 2 years. Number 4, no more than one citation. Hosts cannot have more than one citation issued within the prior 3 years to qualify for administrative approval. Otherwise, hosts must submit an application for discretionary review. The discretionary review process allows Los Angeles City Planning to consider whether there has been a history of continued nuisance activity at the site and may require a public hearing. So if you can meet all of this criteria, there are some really good opportunities for you to do short-term rentals here in Los Angeles. Now, here's the thing. All of these rules are for properties that are being rented out for 30 days or less. If you rent out your property for 31 days, none of these rules apply. The only thing that you need to be aware of is that once you get past 30 days, now you're dealing with tenancy rights and tenancy laws. So in California, we are definitely a pro-tenant state. So just be cautious that if you're going to do this and do it monthly, that sometimes you will have tenant right issues that will come up and people could stay in the property because they're now considered a tenant. So tenants' rights are very, very different than short-term rental rights. You definitely need to talk to a real estate attorney in order to address any of those issues. So if I didn't scare you too much from all that information and you still want to rent out your property short-term here in Los Angeles, you definitely want to watch the rest of this video because I interview 2 vacation rental managers who will give you their experience working in Airbnb in Los Angeles, Palm Springs, and in San Francisco. They are a boutique company and they take really, really good care of their clients. We're going to talk about things to avoid with your Airbnb, things to look for in an Airbnb, and some of the experiences that you have with guests that will really help your revenue grow. And if you have any questions, you can always check the link in my bio or comment down below. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Hey, Nathan and Alex, I am so excited to chat with you guys today about how you help people with their Airbnbs here in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and in Palm Springs. Tell me a little bit about what you and your company do.
Sure thing. So I'm Alex. This is Nathan. So we officially launched Worry-Free B&B in 2019. Nathan and I both had our individual Airbnbs at the time. So I was managing my own Airbnb in San Francisco, and then Nathan was actually managing 2 properties, one in Redondo Beach and one in Palm Springs. And at the same time, we were both kind of working corporate jobs in marketing, digital advertising, and decided that's definitely not the direction that we want to head in. And decided, since we love Airbnb and managing Airbnbs, why don't we do it on a professional level and manage multiple Airbnbs for owners? So we kind of branched out. We started in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and then found that there were, tons of opportunities in Palm Springs. So now we are kind of taking over the entire state of California, doing San Francisco, LA, and Palm Springs. And we have over 30 properties at this point.
That's amazing. So I have a lot of clients who are interested in buying an Airbnb here in LA, and they're not really sure the rules, how to start. What would you say if you have a buyer that's looking to purchase a property that wants to Airbnb, or a seller who wants to actually short-term rental their existing property? How would you tell them to start?
What we've done for potential clients in the past is actually come up with some comps if they have a particular property in mind, and we can kind of project annual income and also monthly income. There's definitely a market to make some money in LA if you're able to go get the permit. The permit with the city is a home sharing permit. It's not called a short-term rental permit. So technically, it must be your primary residence. It can't be a rent stabilized property either. And you're able to rent for 120 days per year, and then you can apply for an extended permit, which is an additional 180 days.
And I think that in Los Angeles, what really makes this market lucrative is that LA is all year round. So what we're seeing in terms of trends in Los Angeles versus places like Palm Springs, places like Palm Springs have seasonality. So obviously in the summer, it's low season, you're going to have less rentals, you're going to have reduced rates. LA is consistent all year round. Not just because of all the tourists that visit LA, but LA is a huge business destination. So you have business travelers, you have tourists, you have tons of families that are coming. So, you know, everybody wants to visit LA at some point. So our properties here are pretty much booked year round. So it really is a great place to invest.
So when a buyer is looking to purchase a property for an investment or either as a primary that they're looking to rent out with an Airbnb, how do you identify high producing or really rentable spaces here in LA? What are like some of the criteria that you look for in a really good Airbnb in Los Angeles?
Well, number one would be location. You definitely want to make sure you're close to some business areas or theme parks, things like that around LA, beaches. Two would be occupancy. The number of bedrooms as it increases will definitely increase the income as well. So the more people you can sleep there, the better. And then just amenities, any sort of fun activities you can add to increase the guest experience. You can put a little ping pong table in the garage or a pool table, things like that that you can really highlight in the photos and the listing really will bring up the guest experience and increase the income.
And some of our owners do have their own personalized touches, which we always recommend. So, for example, one of our owners is a musician, so there's a piano, there's a guitar. So guests really love those personalized touches. Not everybody's looking to stay, in a sterile place. So something that really gives it some personality. We always, have that conversation with owners. Make it your own, put your own flavor on it, and guests will appreciate that.
And
Yeah, I
also
know for
indoor, outdoor space, all of those types of things.
Yeah.
so like I know for me, I've rented on Airbnb for years and years and years, and I always look for places that have a unique design aesthetic or have a hot tub or a pool amenity like that. I think those are really, really helpful. And I'm sure there's properties that are not so generic that are really appealing, that are a perfect Instagram little post. And it probably helps sell those properties a lot easier than if they're just boring and generic.
Yeah, and I was gonna say LA is kind of all over the place in terms of style. So you have guests that are looking for something that's a little bit more modern. So we have a place in the Hollywood Hills, for example. So that's definitely a little bit more modern. We have one that's kind of like a Spanish style, classic, Los Angeles. And there's tons of people that are looking for that kind of charm. So LA is really unique in the sense that, you have something for every kind of guest. So, it all kind of works in LA. I in particular love them both. I love modern, but I also really love Art Deco or, classic Spanish style. And you see a lot of that in Los Angeles. So,
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of like from a real estate perspective. Like I love LA because the architecture is super unique. Like I used to do real estate in Las Vegas, and it's just track homes there.
yeah.
Most of them are just track homes throughout most of the city. But here you have every type of architecture you could possibly want, and which would make it kind of unique from someone that comes from a city that is mostly track homes. So this could see a lot of really cool architecture here as well.
Right. And along those lines, we are, sort of selective about the properties that we take. we've met with many potential clients, and the property is just kind of not right for our portfolio and what's best for renting out Airbnbs. Sometimes we'll give them a list of things that they could do to bring it up to standard, and then we're able to rent it after that.
Can we talk about that a little bit? So you have like what are the kinds of things that you're looking for your clientele? I know that you have like 30 properties at the moment. Is there specific things that you want the host or the owner to do in order to make it more successful? What are those things?
Well, so we view it as a partnership. So we definitely love owners that are involved. There's certain things that they don't need to be involved on. So, anything that's guest related, communications with guests, any issues that come up, we take care of all of that for you so that, so that the owner doesn't have to, worry about it. But we do love owners that understand the fact that if you invest money into your property, it's going to be that much more appealing for guests. The more the owner invests into the property, the higher we can rent it for. So there are owners that are much more hands-on that if they see a piece of furniture, for example, that needs to be replaced, they'll replace it. We have other owners that are a little bit, less hands-on. So we really love having that relationship with owners where they understand that the more that you invest into a property, the higher your monthly revenue will be. And
Is
then,
there specific
yeah, go ahead.
is there specific things that in a house or a condo that you are requirements for a good Airbnb?
Yeah. So personality and personalized touches, like I mentioned earlier, that's definitely key. But then also we have things like a supply list that we offer that we send out to our owners. So there's things on that supply list that we have uh, essentials for an Airbnb, and then we have nice to haves for an Airbnb. So some of our owners do like to go above and beyond and leave things out for guests. So, in some cases they like to leave a bottle of wine or like a little welcome basket. So touches like that are really great. What we do is, we have enough supplies so the guests feel comfortable and they feel like they're really staying in a home that they could stay in for whether that's 3 days or an entire month. We want them to feel comfortable. We don't, the last thing we would want is for guests to come in and it's a completely sterile environment with one set of towels and they just feel inconvenienced. So, we offer little things here and there in the kitchen. We offer certain things, coffee, things like, salt, pepper, olive oil, things where, if they check in the first night and they want to make something in the kitchen, they're not going to have to run out and buy a complete set of supplies. So things like that. And then, certain essentials that you would want as a guest. We kind of look at it from that perspective and we have that conversation with our owners, and the majority of our owners really understand that, to have a good Airbnb, it can't be bare bones. There's certain things that, that you definitely want to.
So do you have a process if a owner wants to rent out their place? Like what's the process if they want to hire you to manage it? Because for me, I know that managing properties is not my strong suit. I don't want to do it. It is tedious. It is sometimes a pain in the butt to have to do this kind of stuff. So I would for sure want somebody to manage a property for me. If I was
Yeah.
going to do that with you, what's the process for a homeowner with you if they want to hire you for your services?
It's definitely a lot more work than people realize.
Yeah.
100%.
If a seller reaches out to us, or a buyer reaches out to us about managing their property, we typically have an intro call, just learn more about the property. We'll pull some comps and kind of come up with that estimated income. And then we'll go to the property, do a walkthrough, do an assessment, meet with the owner, make sure, we vibe, because like Alex said, this is a partnership and we want to make sure we're having the right properties, but also the right clients to work with. After we do our assessment, we go back and discuss, and if it's a go, then we can get it up and running pretty quickly, pending the permit. So we'll go in and do a photo shoot with our professional photographer. We'll write the description for the listing. And then we set up, the calendar, the pricing. We have a dynamic pricing tool.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Like, what is because I'm sure I just literally just had this experience in Miami. I went to Miami to visit my mom, and the first Airbnb I went to, like, didn't match the photos, so I got my money back and I went to another one, and the pricing was like half off because it was the same day. So how do you price an Airbnb in Los Angeles? I assume that's got to be a little bit difficult.
Well, yeah, prices can vary so much depending on seasonality, holidays, big events, conferences. So we have a dynamic pricing tool where we set a minimum nightly rate. We know we're never going to go below this rate, and usually that's agreed upon with the homeowner. They have a specific number that they need to bring in for the month, so we don't want to go lower than that. And then sometimes we don't set a maximum because we may not know how much we can actually get. Um, and then it can change daily depending on comps in the area. So it's really looking at what other Airbnbs are charging in the area and setting the price at that. So, the same property could go for $1,000 a night one day and $799 the next day, just depending on what's happening in the
Is that
in the
is that an automated tool? So like you're not physically going in there and like changing it every
We
day?
go in and adjust from time to time, but yeah, it's an automated tool.
I mean, that's great. And
It's
that's
actually,
something that you guys offer with your services. Like
yeah,
not
yeah, not
not
everybody
everybody
uses it,
can.
but the one that we selected was kind of like the industry standard. In terms of dynamic pricing. It's a really great company that we've partnered with, and we tested out a few and kind of figured out that was the most accurate one. But they are nationwide. I believe they're also international. So it's a great tool to have.
It also helps with the income strategy as we can set the minimum nights that the reservation has to be booked. So far out, more than 6 months from now, we'll say we have to book for 7 night minimum. So we're really filling the calendar with those longer reservations. And then as we get closer to the time, we'll lower it to 5 night, 4 night, 3 night. So we're really trying to get those longer reservations.
And what we can also do is if we're getting closer to the dates and it's still not booked, we discuss what kind of discount we want to offer. So you can do like a 10% discount, or if it's still not booked, 15% discount. So to answer your question, yeah, we do go in there and we do that part manually, but it does, the prices fluctuate automatically based on supply and demand and what's going on in the area.
So a lot of my clients have properties that they are moving away from, or they got a job relocated and they want to rent out their property. Why would you tell somebody to do a short-term rental versus renting it out for a whole year?
Yeah, so we've had this conversation with multiple owners. Renting out on Airbnb and VRBO offers you a lot more flexibility than having a tenant that's locked into a year or 2 year lease. So a lot of our owners like to have 3 or 4 reservations per month, but then in between those reservations, they actually have access to their own house. One of our I was actually speaking to one of our owners yesterday. She has a gym sort of in the back of the house through the backyard. So in between guests, she goes and she uses her own gym. If
Mm.
she had a renter that was locked in all year, she wouldn't have access to that property for the entire year. In addition to that, the nightly rental that you can charge, if you have 3 or 4 reservations per month, you're going to make significantly more doing short-term rentals than if you were just renting, for on an annual basis. So we've just seen that our owners make significantly more money doing Airbnb and VRBO and having flexibility on top of that. So it's kind of a win-win. Nathan and I have both had properties where we've preferred to have them listed as short-term rentals as opposed to having a longer renter. So worst case scenario, you have issues with tenants and tenant rights, and so you might have a squatter type of situation, which is the worst case scenario, but that does happen. Landlords run into those issues. You can't really run into that issue with Airbnb and VRBO because you have a whole safety team that's on your side essentially, if we ever had a situation like that, we'd work with the Airbnb, VRBO safety teams to make sure that, you know, that any bad seeds are immediately removed. Not to mention the fact that there's damage protection. So we're completely covered from there, you know, in terms of insurance. So if something is broken, we work with the air cover teams, and they, you know, they refund us for whatever's broken or damaged. We just have to show some receipts, you know, for what the item cost. But there's a sense of security for the owners when it comes to that.
And that's
Also,
on.
the term gives the owners an opportunity just to get into the property in
Yeah.
between guests, to do repairs, upgrades, or block the calendar for their family that's visiting. You know, we have a tool called Host Away where all of our owners can log into the platform. They see all of their reservations. They can do an owner block on the calendar. They see all the financials, all the guest reviews. So everything is kind of a one-stop shop for the owners.
Yeah, if you look at this, if you look at the screen right now, you'll see you have two different screens here from HomeAway. One that shows 25 nights booked for an average of $8,600 a month. And then you have another one here that is 56 nights booked for $15,000 in revenue. I mean, when you see these kinds of numbers, it's kind of amazing to see what your property can get in terms of revenue. That's why I think it's an Airbnb is so attractive to a lot of people.
In our mind, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you know, it speaks for itself. It more than covers the mortgage for the owners. They make quite a profit on top of that. So, you know, it's something that I personally would do as an owner. You know, Nathan would personally do as an owner. We have done as owners. So, so we highly recommend it to him.
Alex and I own a condo in Palm Springs currently that we rent out. It's a monthly minimum, and we make enough to cover the mortgage, the insurance, all of the expenses. Not a whole lot on top of that, but we're building equity, and it's just paying for itself.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing in a condo situation, you probably have a lot of HOA rules. You have an HOA fee that you have to pay that that you can't get around. You know, with a single family home, you don't have those kind of fees as well.
Right, right. When it's in an HOA, you know, it's you might have a 30-day minimum, which is what we have in that case scenario. It's pretty common when you rent a condo. But even with the 30 days, yeah, you're not going to make quite as much as if you have 3 or 4 shorter reservations. But like Nathan said, it, you know, more than covers the mortgage, and it's, you know, that's also a great way to go, even if you do have a 30-day minimum.
Yeah, and I always tell clients, like, if you're thinking about renting your property, like, even if you just rent it out fully furnished, you're going to make sometimes 35% more than if it's just a vacant property. So if that's something that you're considering doing and you're going to furnish it anyway, then you might as well consider doing it with a short-term rental if you can. So what do you guys, in terms of your fees? Like, I know that you're not doing this for free. So what do you charge clientele if they want to do a vacation rental with you guys?
Mhm. So we have a sliding scale. It's between 20 and 24% based on the type of property. So obviously, if it has, you know, something like a private pool and is a short-term rental, that's going to be on the higher end. If it's something that's, you know, part of an HOA that only has, you know, 30-day minimum and has a shared pool that the HOA takes care of, then it's going to be on the lower end. So we base it off of that, but the amount, it's based on the amount of work that it goes into by our hospitality managers. So we have a team of hospitality managers that manage each of the properties. So, you know, with something like a private pool, there's constant, you know, going back and forth into the app, making sure that the heater is working, making sure that the jets are working, so on and so forth. So there's a lot more work in that sense. If it's, you know, a monthly rental and they do the check-in at the beginning of the month and then answer a couple questions and don't have to really, you know, do anything in between check-in and check-out, then that's definitely going to be on the lower end.
Some of the larger management companies charge less, but you know,
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
You have to do more on your end as an owner, and also, you know, we feel like our commission percentage is justified just based on the service that our clients are getting. Like Alex said, we have a hospitality manager assigned to every property, and they have a max of, 8 to 10 properties. So they're really able to give each client and each property, the attention to detail that's really needed to make the property successful and to get that 5-star guest review after the stay.
And
Yeah, because
what's interesting is that we've acquired a few properties over from some of the larger companies that handle, hundreds and hundreds of listings. The owners kind of learn from experience that they can offer you a much lower percentage, but the owners have to do a lot. The owners were constantly, ordering supplies or, kind of asking them to handle reviews, things that we take off of the hands of the owner. So we charge a slightly higher percentage, but you get what you pay for. So we order the supplies. We make sure that, all of the cleanings are set. We're on top of everything. Our hospitality managers are on top of everything. We do in-person check-ins in markets where that's necessary. Some of the larger companies do kind of like a video check-in, which is fine, but we love the personalized attention that a guest gets at the beginning of their stay. In addition to that, what else?
We've actually heard some nightmare stories. One recently where a guest with one of the larger agencies was staying at a property and the power went out.
Yeah.
They weren't able to get in touch with anyone at the agency for about 24 hours, which is completely unacceptable for us. We are so responsive, probably within minutes, we'd be jumping on.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, Alex, is like you get what you pay for, and there are going to be clients that are like, fine, I'll do the extra work and I don't want to pay the money. But if you don't want to do all of the things, because I don't think people realize how much is involved with doing short-term rentals, between cleanings and checking ins, checking out, making sure things are supplied. Like, it is a constant job. So if you're not willing or if you don't want to do that, then you're going to pay a little bit extra, but you're going to get amazing service. And I know for me, one of the things that annoys me about Airbnb and VRBO and things are the fees that they charge. The fees are getting ridiculous out there. So I know that you have another system for your guests if they want to rebook. Can you tell me a little bit about that system and the fees that you don't charge on your system?
Yeah, so we recently launched a direct booking tool as part of our website. So people that are, for example, have stayed at one of our properties through Airbnb and VRBO, they might be turned off by the fees that you mentioned. So we have started promoting our direct booking tool for repeat visitors who loved our property but don't want to pay $1,000 in Airbnb fees. So they can go direct on our website. They can book that same property, for example, and just avoid the crazy platform fees that Airbnb and VRBO unfortunately have. In addition to that, the only thing that they would pay for us is an insurance fee. So just in case something gets damaged, we are covered on our end, but it's pretty nominal in comparison to the types of platform fees that they pay with with some of the larger ones. So we promote that to repeat visitors. It's always nice to have people coming back, but then we're also, promoting it on social, for people that, find us on Google, for example. And just, some travelers are definitely savvy and they know that there's ways to avoid those Airbnb and VRBO fees. And really the best way to do it is to book direct.
Yeah, Airbnb can get up to like 8 to 14% service fee for guests. But then there's also a 3% host service fee that we pay. So we're saving on that when we book direct, which we're able to pass those savings on to the homeowner as well.
That's huge. I didn't even think about it from an owner's perspective. I was thinking about it from a consumer's perspective. Like, I just paid, almost 20% after cleaning fee, after Airbnb fee, after booking fee. Like, God, it's a lot. So if you can avoid those fees, and then if the seller can avoid the Airbnb fees too, I mean, that's better for everybody.
Yeah, I've done it myself as a traveler. For example, in Mexico, you go onto Airbnb, you find the listing, and then you see who it's managed by. and then you can do a Google search for that agency. So with us, you'll see that it's managed by Worry Free B&B. So you can go and look at our website and you'll see that there's a direct link to
Oh, is this
I
a hack?
love
Did you
that.
just give me a hack
A
about how
little
to
bit of a
get
hack,
around
yeah.
Airbnb?
Shh.
I'm not going to tell anybody except you two.
Don't tell Airbnb.
No, that's a great idea. I didn't even think about doing that, but that's
I've done that
brilliant.
in Mexico many times. So yeah, yeah.
I know. I see you traveling all the time.
Nah, try.
I mean, it's amazing. It's like if you can travel, then do it. I think it opens up your
That's
mind.
part of the reason why we chose to, to have this company. Sitting in an office from 9 to 5 wasn't cutting it. With 2 weeks vacation per year. So yeah, this way it gives us definitely, gives us a bit more flexibility to have a life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Also,
great.
we learn a lot about Airbnbs and what works and what doesn't when we travel ourselves. So it really is kind of like part of the job to do, to do research, and that research sometimes takes us to pretty nice
I
destinations.
mean, that's amazing. I would love to be able to research my Airbnb on a beach. That'd be fun.
Thanks.
So, what are some things that a buyer or a property owner should not do if they are going to rent out their Airbnb?
I would think the first thing that a guest could potentially complain about is if a location is too noisy or on a really busy street. That's the type of feedback that we've had in properties that we actually ended up not renting from our end. We decided to no longer rent because, for example, in Los Angeles, we had a home that was right on Sunset. So
Oof.
constant street noise. It was in a beautiful area, but there was constant street noise. So
Yeah.
as an owner, you kind of have to look around and look at the surroundings before you commit to purchasing your property, and just ask yourself, would I want to stay there as a guest? So things like, a peaceful location, an Airbnb house should be a retreat or an oasis for someone. So if you're hearing constant street noise or, construction or things like that, maybe ask yourself, is this the right location for me?
That would drive,
Um,
and I tell people
yeah,
from a real estate perspective, like for if you're trying to resell a home, try to avoid buying a property on a major road because the resale value even is lower than if you were on an interior lot.
yeah.
So that tracks for both sales and for rentals.
Yeah, noise is one of the top complaints. Another one would be if the property is close to an airport, just
Mm.
kind of go there during the day and at night to see what kind of noise you're getting from the airplanes, if you're directly in the flight path. And then also, if it's a multi-unit building, top floor is always the best because you're always going to get noise from any tenants upstairs, and we have had complaints about that as well.
Yeah, and then in terms of, amenities, just make sure that everything is up to code. Make sure that all appliances are either in really good working order or, fairly new. Something that guests will notice, if, I mean, we've had crazy requests like, oh, does the kitchen have all stainless steel appliances? I don't think it's necessary to have all stainless
Yeah.
steel, but you want to make sure that it's not, that it looks a certain way, it functions a certain way. Basically, put yourself in the shoes of a guest. Something that would make you happy as a guest in an Airbnb is what we strive to give to our guests as a great
So don't rent out a dated, not up to code property, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or if you're purchasing something, just make sure everything's in good working order. Make sure that, we've seen properties, where the hot water is scalding. So you don't want that kind of experience with a guest. You want to make sure that, all the electrical, all of the, the plumbing is in order. You don't want plumbing issues during a guest stay. So always check to see that all of that is in good working order before you start to rent it out or
So I
before
mean,
you.
it's very similar principles when you're purchasing a property. Like make sure the house is in good condition. If it's not, then fix it before you sell it, before you rent it out. And make sure it's in a good location. If it's on a busy road, you're not going to get the same kind of rent or the same kind of appreciation that you do on an interior lot. If you're under a flight path, You're not going to get the same kind of appreciation that a property outside an airport or outside of a flight path will get. So it's basic rules, but I'm sure there's more nuance in terms of the guest experience that you guys can help people with.
Cool.
Okay, thank you guys so much for all this information. It's really helpful for anybody who's looking to do an Airbnb here in Los Angeles. If they want to hire you or if they want to ask you questions about a potential property that they want to Airbnb, how can somebody get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're definitely on social, IG and Facebook, but the best way would be our website, worryfreebnb.com. You can check out all of our properties there, our management services, and find our contact number there as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for doing an interview with me. I know you're going to do a lot of great things for potential clients looking to Airbnb here in LA.
Thanks, Felipe.
Thank you.
Have a good day, guys.